So now we'll start our today's lesson plan. Currently, we are studying Lankavatar Sutra. Yesterday we had started, and today we will cover whatever as much as you can. Okay. Yes. So Meghna, please start reading from then asked Mahamati the Bodhisattva Mahasattva.
Yes. Then asked Mahamati, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, O blessed one, Sugata, Arhat, and fully enlightened one, pray tell us about the realization of noble wisdom, which is beyond the path and usage of the philosophers, which is devoid of all predicates such as being and non-being, oneness and otherness, bothness and not bothness, existence and non-existence, eternity and non-eternity, which has nothing to do with individuality and generality, nor false imagination, nor any illusions arising from the mind itself, but which manifests itself as the truth of highest reality, by which, going up continuously by the stages of purification, one enters at last upon the stage of Tathagatahood, whereby, by the power of his original vows, unattended by any striving, one will radiate its influence to infinite worlds like a gem reflecting its variegated colors, whereby I and other Bodhisattva Mahasattvas will be enabled to bring all beings to the same perfection of virtue.
Yes. So this question itself is very comprehensive and explains a lot of things. Rather, this question is an overview of this entire book, entire sutra, Lankavatar Sutra. Okay. We have seen that it talks about the different stages and the ultimate goal, Tathagathood, and also it talks about noble wisdom, So he prays to blessed one, Arhat, and fully enlightened one, to tell about the realization of noble wisdom, and that noble wisdom which is beyond what? Beyond the path and usage of philosophers. Because noble wisdom is something which cannot be understood and cannot be experienced by the philosophers. So you'll have to go more ahead, more advanced than philosophers. And that noble wisdom that is devoid of all predicates. Void, void means emptiness. Void means empty. So that is empty of all predicates, such as being and non-being. So the noble wisdom is beyond being and non-being. So you cannot say noble wisdom is being. And also you cannot say that is non-being. Okay. You cannot give any label to noble wisdom. And here noble wisdom means Kaivalyam, Nirvana, or the ultimate liberation. That is the ultimate goal of everything, particularly spirituality or yoga. So that is the ultimate state of yoga, noble wisdom. Okay. So that is devoid of being and non-being, oneness and otherness. So the noble wisdom is also beyond oneness and otherness. See, non-duality means not only oneness. Okay. And also not otherness. So that is beyond oneness and otherness. Me and others, what do you say? Self and others. This is myself and this is others. And also bothness and non-bothness. What you call duality and non-duality. Bothness means duality and non-bothness means non-duality. Existence and non-existence. So that is also devoid of existence and non-existence. That is existence and that is also non-existence, or that is beyond, or that is both, or that is nothing. So everything, every level or no predicate can be given to this. Individuality and generality. This says also existence and non-existence, eternity and non-eternity, and which has nothing to do with individuality and generality, nor false imagination, nor any illusions arising from the mind itself. Because all illusions arise from the mind. And further, you understand that everything is manifestation of mind. Okay, everything. Even you see me, I see you with mind all. If there is no mind, there is nothing to be seen, there is none to see, and there is no seeing process. So everything is from mind, but which manifests itself as a truth of highest reality. So noble wisdom manifests by itself as called self-existence or independence. Independent. Noble wisdom is independent because that manifests itself as the truth of highest reality. So that is the truth of highest reality. And further he says, by which going up continuously by the stages of purification. So by the noble wisdom only you are purified. And through different stages of purification, one enters at the last upon the last stage of the Tathagathood. So you have to ascend every stage, and that is the 10th stage where one has to reach. That will come further. The 10th stage is called the Tathagathood, and thereby, by the power of his original vows, unattended by any striving, one will radiate its influence to infinite worlds. So when you realize the Tathagathood, then because of the original vows, power of original vows, you will radiate its influence to infinite worlds like a gem reflecting its variegated colors. So there is a gem, like a diamond. When the sun rays sheds upon the diamond, that reflects different colors, right? Variegated colors. So, so also when you will reach that stage, then you will radiate different colors, different shades of existence, whereby I and other bodhisattvas, mahasattvas will be enabled to bring all beings to the same perfection of virtue. How? Because when Buddha will explain about these things, then that will be very helpful to bodhisattvas and mahasattvas. And they will be enabled to bring all beings to the same perfection. Okay? So here he says that they will be enabled to bring all the beings to the same perfection of virtue. Okay? So he has prayed to Blessed One to explain about this noble wisdom and the path and whatever. Okay? Then Blessed One replies. Yeah.
Said the Blessed One, well done, Mahamati, and again well done indeed. It is because of your compassion for the world, because of the benefit it will bring to many people, both humankind and celestial, that you have presented yourself before us to meet this request. Therefore, Mahamati, listen well and truly reflect upon what I shall say, for I will instruct you. Then Mahamati and the other Bodhisattva Mahasattvas gave devout attention to the teaching of the Blessed One.
Okay. So Buddha says that Buddha appreciates to Mahamati, and he says, well done, well done. And he was very happy. And he says, again, well done indeed. He says, again, well done indeed. And he says, it is because of your compassion to the world and for the benefits of many people, both human being and celestial beings. Celestial beings means they who are called gods, demigods, they are celestial beings. So that will be beneficial for both of them. And you have your question, your request will benefit all of them, many people. Therefore, listen well and truly reflect upon what I shall say you. So whatever I will tell you, listen carefully, attentively, and also reflect upon them. Okay? And then Sutra says that Bodhisattva Mahasattvas gave devout attention to the teachings of the Blessed One. Devout attention. And with the same attention, we have to study and we have to understand this and apply this for ourselves and also to teach others. Yeah. Further, he says,
Mahamati, since the ignorant and simple minded, not knowing that the world is only something seen of the mind itself, cling to the multitudinous of external objects, cling to the notions of being and non being, oneness and otherness, bothness and non bothness, existence and non existence, eternity and non eternity, and thinks that they have a self nature of their own, all of which rises from the discriminations of the mind and is perpetuated by habit energy, and from which they are given over to false imagination. It is all like a mirage in which springs of water are seen as if they were real. They are thus imagined by animals who, made thirsty by the heat of the season, run after them. Animals, not knowing that the springs are a hallucination of their own minds, do not realize that there are no such springs. In the same way, Mahamati, the ignorant and simple minded, their minds burning with the fires of greed, anger, and folly, finding delight in a world of multitudinous forms, their thoughts obsessed with ideas of birth, growth, and destruction, not well understanding what is meant by existent and non existent, and being impressed by the erroneous discriminations and speculations since beginningless time, fall into the habit of grasping this and that and thereby becoming attached to them.
yes. So Buddha says that everything, the entire world is only something seen of the mind itself. You know? So this will come again many a times that everything is mind manifestation, your mental projection. So the entire world is seen of the mind. This is like mirage. Mirage is seen by the antelope or the deer because of the hallucination of their own minds. Okay, so that is hallucination. What? The mirage. There is no water, but that is there in mind. That looks like water, but in fact there is no water. Similarly, the ignorant or the simple minded people see this entire world, entire existence as real, but nothing is real. As real as the mirage. Okay, because of the impression of their erroneous discriminations and speculations since beginningless time. Beginningless time, this is notable. Beginningless time. Since beginningless time, since you came into existence and you don't know when you began, even nobody knows when you begin your journey. Since your journey is beginningless, so also your discriminations, your erroneous views, your erroneous speculations are beginningless. And you can understand this is so much ancient. Your mindset, isn't it difficult to change within years? But still, you can change your entire mindset if you are brave enough, if you are open enough. You can change, you can discard everything, whatever is imposing, whatever is covering your mind, you have to discard all of them. What? Your own erroneous views, erroneous discriminations. And what is that? Like further Buddha says, it is like the city of the Gandharvas.
It is like the city of the Gandharvas, which the unwitting take to be a real city, though it is not so in fact. The city appears as in a vision owing to their attachment to the memory of a city preserved in the mind as a seed. The city can thus be said to be both existent and non existent.
Yes. So the city of Gandharvas means a city of miracles, city born of miracles. That city looks like real, but that is not real. Any magician, this is like magician creates a city, and that city is created by the magic, by a spellbound. That is not real. So this entire world is like that. So existence and non-existence do not apply to that, and both apply to that. Existence and non-existence. that is actually existing because you are seeing that. But in reality, that doesn't exist. So both things apply to that, existence and non-existence. Okay, yeah. In the same way, Buddha says,
In the same way, clinging to the memory of erroneous speculations and doctrines accumulated since beginningless time, they hold fast to such ideas as oneness and otherness, being and non being, and other thoughts are not at all clear as to what, after all, is only seen of the mind. It is like a man dreaming in his sleep of a country that seems to be filled with various men, women, elephants, horses, cars, pedestrians, villages, towns, hamlets, cows, buffaloes, mansions, woods, mountains, rivers, and lakes, and who moves about in the city until he is awakened. As he lies half awake, he recalls the city of his dreams and reviews his experiences there. What do you think, Mahamati? Is this dreamer who is letting his mind dwell upon the various unrealities he has seen in his dream? Is he to be considered wise or foolish? In the same way, the ignorant and simple minded, who are favorably influenced by the erroneous views of the philosophers, do not recognize that the views that are influencing them are only dreamlike ideas originating in the mind itself, and consequently they are held fast by their notions of oneness and otherness, of being and non being. It is like a painter's canvas on which the ignorant imagine they see the elevations and depressions of mountains and valleys.
okay, Buddha says this is like dream. So a dreamer dreams and sees everything, you know, the various men, women, animals, roads, buildings, rivers, mountains, everything is real. So Buddha says, the, is that dreamer is wise or foolish? Is he to be considered wise or foolish? So in one sense, he is wise because he is dreaming. In the other sense, he is foolish because that is not real. So also with ignorant and simple-minded. Okay, and this entire world is the same, like dream. And also this world is like a painter paints on the canvas, and that looks real. And you can see the elevations and depressions of mountains and valleys and roads and nature. That looks real, but that is not real. So that's it. In the same way, there are people today. Yes, further.
Oh. In the same way, there are people today being brought up under the influence of similar erroneous views of oneness and otherness, of bothness and not bothness, whose mentality is being conditioned by the habit energy of these false imaginings, and who later on will declare those who hold the true doctrine of no birth, which is free from the alternatives of being and non being, to be nihilists, and by so doing will bring themselves and other to ruin. By the natural law of cause and effect, these followers of his views uproot meritorious causes that otherwise would lead to unstained purity. They are to be shunned by those whose desires are for more excellent things.
Yes. Next date.
It is like the dim-eyed ones who, seeing a hairnet, exclaim to one another, "It is wonderful! Look, honourable sirs, it is wonderful!" But the hairnet has never existed. In fact, it is neither an entity nor a non-entity, for it has both been seen and has not been seen. In the same manner, those whose minds have been addicted to the discriminations of the erroneous views cherished by the philosophers, which are given over to the realistic views of being and non being, will contradict the good dharma and will end in the destruction of themselves and others.
Yes. Buddha says that they are like dim-eyed one. So a dim-eyed one see the things which actually is not there. Hairnet, seeing like a hairnet, and he or she exclaims that this is wonderful. This looks very nice. But in one sense, that exists in his vision, but in reality, that is not existing. So similarly, an entity or non-entity is the same to the world. So world in one sense is an entity, but in other sense is non-entity. But in highest reality is non-entity. Only with erroneous views we see as real or entity or being or living being. Narrate further.
It is like a wheel of fire made by a revolving firebrand, which is no wheel but which is imagined to be one by the ignorant. Nor is it not a wheel because it has not been seen by some. By the same reasoning, those who are in the habit of listening to the discriminations and views of the philosophers will regard things born as non existent and those destroyed by causation as existent. It is like a mirror reflecting colors and images as determined by conditions but without any partiality. It is like the echo of the wind that gives the sound of a human voice. It is like a mirage of moving water seen in a desert. In the same way, the discriminating mind of the ignorant, which has been heated by false imaginations and speculations, is stirred into mirage like waves by the winds of birth, growth, and destruction. It is like the magician Pisaka, who by means of his spells made a wooden image or a dead body to throb with life, though it has no power of its own. In the same way, the ignorant and the simple minded, committing themselves to erroneous philosophical views, become thoroughly devoted to the ideas of oneness and otherness, but their confidence is not well grounded. For this reason, Mahamati, you and other Bodhisattva Mahasattvas should cast off all discriminations leading to the notions of birth, abiding and destructions of oneness and otherness, of bothness and not bothness, of being and non being, and thus getting free of the bondage of habit, energy, become able to attain the reality realizable within us yourselves of noble wisdom.
Okay. So Buddha says that oneness, otherness, bothness, non-bothness, being, non-being, all these arise because of our discriminating mind. And this is our old nature, old habit. And this we have to discard in order to realize the noble wisdom within ourselves. Yeah. Then,
Then asked Mahamati to the Blessed One, why is it that the ignorant are given up to discrimination and the wise are not? The Blessed One replied, it is because the ignorant cling to names, signs, and ideas. As their minds move along these channels, they feed on multiplicities of objects and fall into the notion of an ego soul and what belongs to it. They make discriminations of good and bad among appearances and cling to the agreeable. As they thus cling, there is a reversion to ignorance, and karma born of greed, anger, and folly is accumulated. As the accumulation of karma goes on, they become imprisoned in a cocoon of discrimination and are henceforth unable to free themselves from the round of birth and death.
yeah. So Buddha says, first Mahamati asks, why is it that ignorant are given up to the discrimination and the wise are not? So only ignorant person is given to discrimination. But wise doesn't appreciate this and wise doesn't have this, carry this discrimination. Then Buddha replies, because of their clinginess. Ignorant people have clingingness to names, signs, and ideas. Okay, and their minds are always moving in those channels. Their minds are not rid of these influences. Therefore, they discriminate as good and bad among appearances and cling to the agreeable. See, they discriminate and they cling to agreeable and they give up the unagreeable. Okay, Buddha says that as they thus cling, there is a reversion to ignorance. So clinging gives rise to the reversion to ignorance. And karma, born of greed, anger, and folly, is accumulated. Okay? And as the accumulation of karma goes on, they become imprisoned in a cocoon of discrimination. And they're not free from the birth and death. Okay? Yeah.
Because of folly, they do not understand that all things are like Maya, like the reflection of the moon in water, that there is no self substance to be imagined as an ego soul and its belongings, and that all their definitive ideas rise from their false discriminations, of what exists only as it is seen of the mind itself. They do not realize that things have nothing to do with qualified and qualifying, nor with the course of birth, abiding, and destruction, and instead they assert that they are born of a creator, of time, of atoms, of some celestial spirit. It is because the ignorant are given up to discrimination that they move along with the stream of appearances, but it is not so with the wise.
Okay, so this is clear. Because of the folly, folly means foolishness or illusions or our delusions. They don't understand that all things are like Maya. And what is the meaning of Maya? Maya means that which does not exist. It's called Maya. Ma means no, and Ya means that. That is no. Okay, that doesn't exist. That is called Maya. जो नहीं है, that which is not, that's called Maya. Ma means नहीं, Ya means जो. जो नहीं है, उसको माया कहते हैं. Okay, so everything is Maya, and Maya is like reflection of moon in water. So moon in water can be called as Maya. The real moon is not Maya, but moon in water is Maya, because that is reflection. That there is no self-substance to be imagined as an ego soul and its belongings. So in us also, there is no ego soul actually. That is reflection. That is just a momentary reflection of that uh, truth. But that the ego soul is not there actually. Okay. And when there is no ego soul, there is no birth, there is no destruction, there is nothing. Okay. Because of discrimination and appearances only, the stream of appearances. Because of the stream of appearances that looks like real. Okay. This is like a movie. When you see a movie, so that looks like that is moving, but that is not moving. There are just series of still images in the movie that looks like real. So also about everything. So that was about the discrimination. Okay. And next is false imagination and knowledge of appearances. So read this.
False imagination and knowledge of appearances. Then Mahamati, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, asked the Blessed One, saying, "You speak the erroneous views of the philosophers. Will you please tell us of them that we may be on our guard against them?" The Blessed One replied, saying, "Mahamati, the error in the erroneous teachings that are generally held by the philosophers lies in this. They do not recognize the objective world rises from the mind itself. They do not understand that the whole mind system also arises from the mind itself. But depending upon these manifestations of the mind as being real, they go on discriminating them, like the simple-minded ones, that they are cherishing the dualism of this and that, of being and non-being, ignorant of the fact that there is but one common essence."
Yes. So Mahamati asked to Blessed One Buddha that you speak of the erroneous views of philosophers. So please tell us what is actually erroneous views. Okay. So that we will be on guard against them. And we will not allow that erroneous views to be in us. So kindly explain about that. And then Buddha replies that the error in these erroneous teachings that are generally held by the philosopher lies in this. What? They do not recognize that the objective world rises from the mind itself. So that is the first error. First, philosophers' erroneous views. And we have to be guard on. What? That the entire objective world rises from nowhere, but from mind itself. Okay? And they do not understand that the whole mind system also rises from the mind itself. Even the mind system is also of mind. But depending upon this manifestation of mind as being real, they go on discriminating them. like simple-minded. They are cherishing the dualism of this and that, of being and non-being. So see, we have to be on guard of dualism also. So we have not to go on being nor on non-being. This is called dualism. And when you do not choose any of them, that's called non-dualistic views. Neither being nor non-being. You say, I cannot say if it is being, or I cannot say also that it's not being. Okay. So this is a philosopher who goes on one part only.
On the contrary, my teaching is based upon the recognition that the objective world, like a vision, is a manifestation of the mind itself. It teaches the cessation of ignorance, desire, deed, and casuality. It teaches the cessation of suffering that arises from the discriminations of the triple world. There are some Brahman scholars who, assuming something out of nothing, assert that there is a substance bound up and causation which abides in time, and that the elements that make up personality and its environment have their genesis and continuation in causation, and after thus existing pass away. Then there are other scholars who hold a destructive and nihilistic view concerning such subjects as continuation, activity, breaking up, existence, nirvana, and the paths, karma, fruition, and truth. Why? Because they have not attained an intuitive understanding of truth itself, and therefore they have no clear insight into the fundamentals of things. They are like a jar broken into pieces which is no longer able to function as a jar. They are like a burnt seed which is no longer capable of sprouting. But the elements that make up personality and its environment, which they regard as subject to change, are really incapable of uninterrupted transformations. Their views are based upon erroneous discriminations of the world, of the objective world. They are not based upon the true conception.
Okay. So Buddha says that with the recognition of this objective world, like a vision or manifestation of the mind itself, Buddha says, my teaching is based upon the recognition that everything is like vision. So Buddha says, my teaching is based on the reality, not on the assumptions, not on the discrimination, not based on the erroneous views, but on the right views. That is why Buddha's first Eightfold Path's first thing is right view, samyak drishti. Okay, so his practice starts with samyak drishti, right views, and this is where we start making mistakes. And when the beginning is wrong, the end also will be wrong. Okay, so always begin with clarity, always begin with the right approach, right views. And Buddha also condemns the philosophies of Brahmins, Brahman scholars. He said, Brahman scholars say that something out of nothing, something has come out of nothing. And Buddha says that they assert that there is a substance bound up with causation, which abides in time, cause and effects and time. But reality is beyond cause and effects, reality is beyond time. So if they say that something is bound up with causation and that abides in time, and that the elements that make up personality and its environment have their genesis and continuation in causation, and after thus existing pass away, so that is also a false view. Buddha says they also hold the erroneous view. And then Buddha says there are other philosophers, other scholars who hold absolutely destructive and nihilistic view, like such subject like continuation, activity, breaking up, existence, nirvana, path, karma, fruition, truth. So the concept of nirvana, the concept of truth is also bewildering, is also, confusing. So at one point there is Brahmin scholars, another point there are scholars who says there is nothing, formless, Nirakar and Sakar. There are two kinds of philosophies. One says that Ishwar is Sakar, another says Ishwar is Nirakar. Both are wrong. Actually, both belong to the same category of ignorance. So people who just keep talking about breaking up, existence, nirvana, the path, truth, that is also wrong. Buddha says if you hold the concept of nirvana other than mind, then you are holding the concept of nirvana erroneously, wrongly. So most of the people do not understand nirvana also even. Okay, that will be more clear later on. Buddha says both are in error. Further, he says why? Because they have not attained an intuitive understanding of the truth itself. Because truth is different than the people understand as truth. Okay, when we say truth is God, Satya hi Ishwar hai. But what is that truth? People do not have clarity about that truth also. That will be more clearer in coming sutras, in coming part of the sutras. So he says that they are like a jar broken into pieces, which is no longer able to function as a jar. They are like a burnt seed, which is no longer capable of sprouting. Okay, so if they do not have intuitive understanding of the truth, and if they do not have clear insight into the fundamental of things, then they are just incapable of reaching the ultimate goal, ultimate realization, and also they are not able to lead people to that state. So understanding. So there are many leaders, many so-called enlightened masters who are enlightening the people, but they themselves are not enlightened. They themselves are unaware about the truth itself. Okay, and he says their views are based upon erroneous discrimination of the objective world, and they are not based upon the true conception. They are based upon their erroneous views. Okay, here this up and try to be fluent in reading also. Okay, very fluent. Do not feel stuck. Do not, stop at any punctuation or any word. So watch every word with open eyes and then read fluently. Yeah, go ahead.
Again, if it is true that something comes out of nothing, and there is the rise of the mind system by reason of the combination of the three effect producing causes, we could say the same of any non-existing thing. For instance, for a tortoise could grow hair or send produce oil. This proposition is of no avail. It ends in affirming nothing. It follows that the deed, work, and cause of which they speak is of no use, and so also is their reference to being and non-being. If they argue that there is a combination of the three effect producing causes, they must do it on the principle of cause and effect. That is that something comes out of something and not out of nothing. As long as a world of relativity is asserted, there is an recurring chain of causation which cannot be denied under any circumstances. Therefore, we cannot talk of anything coming to an end of secession. As long as these scholars remain on their philosophical ground, their demonstration must conform to logic and their textbooks. And the memory habit of enormous
Erroneous.
erroneous intellection will ever cling to them. To make the matter worse, the simple-minded ones, poisoned by the erroneous views, will declare the incorrect way of thinking taught by the ignorant to be the same as that presented by the all-knowing one.
Okay. So he says that This is like the tortoise could grow hair or sand produce oil, which is impossible, right? Which is impossible and that is false. So all these affirmations that something comes of nothing is false. If you say that cause and effect, then cause and effect says that there is cause, that is why there is effect. So how something can come from nothing? So if the nothingness is the ultimate reality, then the something which you see is not real, because nothing cannot produce nothing. Nothing cannot produce anything. Nothing produces nothing. Or nothing in reality, nothing produces nothing. Nothing doesn't produce anything actually. And at the last, Buddha says, to make the matter worse, the simple minded ones, poisoned by this erroneous views, poisoned by, see, he says, they are poisoned by the erroneous views and will declare this incorrect way of thinking taught by the ignorant to be the same as the presented by all knowing one. So they say whatever Buddha says, this is the same thing what I am telling you. But actually that is absolutely different than Buddha's view. Or that is different than the right views. Okay. Yes. Read further.
But the way of instruction presented by the Tathagatas is not based on assertion and refutations by means of words and logic. There are four forms of assertion that can be made concerning things not in existence, namely assertions made about individual marks that are not in existence, about objects that are not in existence, about a cause that is non-existent, and about philosophical views that are uh, erroneous. But reputations is meant that one, because of ignorance, has not examined properly the error that lies at the base of these assertions.
Assertions and refutations. Refutations means negation. Assertions means you say yes, and refutation means you refuse. Okay. So these both assertions and negations, refutations are error, and the normal philosophers' teachings are based on the assertions and negations, but not of the Tathagatas. Okay.
The assertions about individual marks that really have no existence concerns the distinctive marks as perceived by the eye, ear, nose, etc., as indicating individuality and generality in the elements that make up personality and its external world, and then taking these marks for reality and getting attached to them, to get into the habit of affirming that things are just so and not otherwise. The assertion about objects that are a non-existence is an assertion that rises from the attachment to these associated marks of individuality and generality. Objects in themselves are neither in existence nor in non-existence and are quite devoid of the alternative of being and non-being, and should only be thought of as things of the horn one of the horns of a hare, a horse, or a camel, which never existed. Objects are discriminated by the ignorant who are addicted to assertion and negation, because their intelligence has not been acute enough to penetrate into the truth that there is nothing but what is seen of the mind itself.
Yes. So everything is seen of the mind. Okay.
Further,
Mhm.
the assertion of a cause that is non existent assumes the causeless birth of the first element of the mind system, which later on comes to have one only a Maya like non existence. This is to say, there are philosophers who assert that an originally unborn mind system begins to function under the conditions of eye, form, light, and memory, which functioning goes on for a time and then ceases. This is an example of a cause that is non existent. The assertion of philosophical views concerning the elements that make up personality and its environing world that are non existent assume the existence of an ego, a being, a soul, a living being, a nourisher, or a spirit. This is an example of philosophical views that are not true. It is this combination of discrimination of imaginary marks of individuality, grouping them and giving them a name and becoming attached to them as objects by reason of habit energy that has been accumulating since beginningless time, that one builds up in our erroneous views whose only basis is false imagination. For the reason, bodhisattvas should avoid all discussion relating to assertion and negations whose only basis is words and logic.
Okay. So, Buddha says philosophical views concerning the elements which make personality or and its environment world that are non-existent assume the existence of an ego. So they assume the existence of ego, being, soul, living being, a nourisher or a spirit. So the concept of Bhagwan, the concept of Bhagwan or God or Paramatma is false in this view. Okay. And he says this is an example of philosophical views that are not true actually. It is the combination of discrimination of imaginary marks of individuality and grouping them and giving them a name and becoming attached to them as objects by reasons of habit energy since beginningless time. Okay, so that one builds up erroneous views, and that views is based on what? False imagination. And he says, for this reason, Bodhisattva should avoid all discussions relating to assertions and negations, whose only basis is words and logic. Okay. So the talking, the assertion, the discussions that exist and that doesn't exist, all these are based on words and logics, and that is just futile. That is baseless. Okay.
Word discrimination goes on by the coordination of brain, chest, nose, throat, palate, lips, tongue, teeth, and lips. Words are neither different nor not different from discrimination. Words rises from discrimination as their cause. If words are different from discrimination, they could not have discrimination for their cause. Then again, if words are not different, they could not carry and express meanings. Words therefore are produced by causation and are mutually conditioning and shifting, and just like things are subject to birth and destruction.
Yes. Go ahead.
There are four kinds of word discrimination, all of which are to avoid all of which are to be avoided because they are like unreal. First, there are the words indicating individual marks which rise from the discriminating forms and signs as being real in themselves and then becoming attached to them. There are memory words which rise from the unreal surroundings which come before the mind when it recalls some previous experiences. Then there are words growing out of attachment to the erroneous distinctions and speculations of the mental processes. And finally, there are words growing out of inherited prejudices as seeds of habit energy have accumulated since beginningless time, or which had their origin in some long forgotten clinging to false imagination and erroneous speculations. Then there are words where there are no corresponding objects, as for instance, the hairs on a barren woman's child, etc. There are no such things, but we have the words. Just the same, words are an artificial creation. There are Buddha lands where there are no words. In some Buddha lands, ideas are indicated by looking steadily. In others by gestures. In still others by a frown, by a movement of the eyes, by laughing, by yawning, by the clearing of the throat, or by trembling. For instance, in the Buddha land of the Tathagata, Samanta Bhadra Bodhisattvas, by a dhyana transcending words and ideas, attaining the recognition of all things as unborn, and they also experience various most excellent samadhis that transcend words. Even in this world, such specialized beings as ants and bees carry on their activities very well without recourse to words. No, Mahamati, the validity of these of things is independent of the validity of words.
Okay. So Buddha here explains about the thoughts, words. So what happens when we are arguing, when we are discriminating things? We are using the words, we are using different thoughts. And here he explains what is the anatomy of the thought, what is the anatomy of the thinking, how the discriminating. Words, discrimination, the meaning, and everything. These are, you know, just born of false imaginations. Yes, read further.
Moreover, there are other things that belong to words, namely the syllable body of words, the name body of words, and the sentence body of words. By syllable body is meant that by which words and sentences are set up or indicated. There is a reason for some syllables. Some are uh, many many moic. Hmm? So what is this word? Can you tell?
Hmm.
Many monic, and some
Mnemonic,
are
mnemonic.
mnemonic,
M is silent, mnemonic.
mnemonic, and some are chosen uh, arbitrarily,
Arbitrarily.
arbitrarily. By name body is meant the object depending upon which a name word obtains its significance, or in other words, name body is the substance of a name word. By sentence body is meant the completion of the meaning by expressing the word more fully in a sentence. The name for the sentence body is suggested by the footprints left in the road by elephants, horses, people, deer, cattle, goats, etc. But neither words nor sentences can exactly express meanings, for words are only sweet sounds that are arbitrarily chosen to represent things. They are not the things themselves, which in turn are only manifestations of mind. Discrimination of meaning is based upon the false imagination that these sweet sounds, which we call words, and which are dependent upon whatever subjects they are supposed to stand for, and which subjects are supposed to be self-existence, all of which is based on error. Disciples should be on their guard against their seductions of words and sentences and their illusive meanings, for by them the ignorant and the dull witted become entangled and helpless as an elephant floundering about in the deep mud.
Okay. So Buddha says that the words, the discriminations are actually the combinations of words or the synthesis of the words. And words are just arbitrarily chosen. We choose the words arbitrarily. And When we say water to the water, water doesn't know that this is my name. Water is unaware of its name, but we have given the name to water, that this is water. We have given the name the earth to the earth, but earth is unaware that my name is earth. Even the ant is also unaware that my name is ant. You know, so words are given by the people. Words were evolved very later on after the creation. When we were uncivilized, we do not know what is the language. We are not talking. We are just behaving like animals. Even animals still not don't talk, but they are doing everything. So we should not give more importance to the words, and words are beloved of the ignorant and dull-witted. The ignorant and dull-witted become entangled in the words, and they are as helpless as an elephant floundering about in the deep mud. Okay? And therefore, Buddha says, words and sentences are produced by the law of causation and are mutually conditioning. They cannot express highest reality. See, words or sentences or the thoughts cannot express highest reality. Even whatever you are reading in this book, in this textbook, they will not take to the highest reality. Okay, they are just uh, of very less help. The the purpose of the sutra is to make you empty of all the words, not loaded with the words. Okay, because words don't express the highest reality. Moreover, in highest reality, there are no differentiations to be discriminated, and there is nothing to be predicated in regard to it. So highest reality is something different.
Highest reality is an exalted state of bliss. It is not a state of word discrimination, and it cannot be entered into by mere statements concerning it. The Tathagatas have a better way of teaching, namely through self realization of noble wisdom.
Yeah. So this is very remarkable. Highest reality is not based on the words, but is an exalted and state of bliss. When you are very blissful, when you are very happy, you are there. Where? In highest reality. Okay. And it is not a state of word discrimination. And it cannot be entered into by mere statement concerning to it. That aham brahmasmi. Just keep telling aham brahmasmi, but you are not there. That's not going to help you. So the mantras become useless later on. Mantras are what? Mantras are synthesis of words. What is more important in mantra is meditation. And what is meditation? Meditation is feeling becoming empty of the words, becoming empty of the discrimination, thoughts. Okay. So Buddha says the Tathagatas have a better way of teaching. So the Tathagatas don't teach through words, but through self-realization of noble wisdom. Realize this, then only you will be helped. Otherwise, you will become helpless. Yes. Next.
Mahamati asked the Blessed One, pray tell us about the causation of all things, whereby I and other bodhisattvas may see into the nature of causation and may no more discriminate it as to the gradual or simultaneous rising of all things. The
Yes.
Blessed One
He has asked the question to Buddha that please tell us about the causation of all things. Causation of all things, whereby I and other bodhisattvas may see into the nature of causation and may no more discriminate it as a to the gradual or simultaneous rising of all things. Okay. So now he will be explaining about the causation of all things.
The Blessed One replied, there are two factors of causation by reason of which all things come into seeming existence, external and internal factors. The external factors are a lump of clay and a stick, a wheel, a thread, a water, a worker, and his labor, all the combination of all of which produces a jar. As with a jar which is made from a lump of clay, or a piece of cloth made from thread, or matting made from fragrant grass, or a sprout growing out of seed, or fresh butter made from sour milk by a man churning it, so it is with all things which appear one after another in continuous succession. As regards the inner factors of causation, there are of such kinds as ignorance, desire, purpose, all of which enter into the idea of causation. Born of these two factors, there is the manifestation of personality and the individual things that make up its environment, but they are not individual and distinctive things. They are only so discriminated by the ignorant.
Yes. So the essence is different than the appearances. Okay. Like, so Buddha has given an example of jar. So jar is made from a lump of clay and piece of cloth made from a thread. So the reality is thread only. The reality is the clay only. So this is clay which makes different forms, different types of jars. The thread forms different, makes different types of cloths, but the reality is thread. Okay, thread is the essence, and different forms are just illusion. Reality is thread. Reality is clay. Forms are illusions. Okay.
Causation may be divided into six elements: indifference cause, dependence cause, possibility cause, agency cause, objectivity cause, and manifesting cause. Indifference cause means that if there is no discrimination present, there is no power of combination present, and so no combination takes place, or if present, there is dissolution. Dependence cause means that the elements must be present. Possibility cause means that when a cause is to be become effective, there must be a suitable meeting of conditions, both internal and external. Agency cause means that there must be a principle vested with supreme authority, like a sovereign king, present and asserting itself. Objectivity cause means that to be a part of the objective world, the mind system must be in existence and must be keeping up its continuous activity. Manifesting cause means that as the discriminating faculty of the mind system becomes busy, individual marks will be revealed as forms are revealed by the light of a lamp.
Yes. Further.
All causes are thus seen to be the outcome of discrimination carried on by the ignorant and simple minded, and there is therefore no such thing as gradual or simultaneous rising of existence. If such a thing as the gradual rising of existence is asserted, it can be disproved by showing that there is no basic substance to hold the individual signs together, which makes a gradual rising impossible. If simultaneous rising of existence is asserted, there would be no distinction between cause and effect, and there will be nothing to characterize a cause as such. While a child is not yet born, the term father has no significance. Logicians argue that there is that which is born and that which gives birth by the mutual functioning of such causal factors as cause, substance, continuity, acceleration, etc. And so they conclude that there is a gradual rising of existence. But this gradual rising does not obtain except by reason of attachment to the notion of self nature.
Yes.
When ideas of body, for property, and abode are seen, discriminated and cherished in what, after all, is nothing but what is conceived by the mind itself, an external world is perceived under the aspects of individuality and generality, which, however, are not realities, and therefore neither a gradual nor a simultaneous rising of things is possible.
Yeah. So he explains here that the gradual rising nor simultaneously rising of things is possible. Okay. It is only when the mind system. Yeah, Meghna.
Oh, sorry, sir. It is only when the mind system comes into activity and discriminates the manifestations of mind that existence can be said to come into view. For these reasons, Mahamati, you must get rid of notions of gradation and simultaneity in the combination of causal activities. Mahamati asked, Blessed One, to what kind of discrimination and to what kind of thoughts should the term false imagination be applied?
Yeah. So he says, what kind of discrimination and what kind of thought is termed as false imagination. Okay. And
The
Buddha
blessed one
replied,
replied, So long as people do not understand the true nature of the objective world, they fall into the dualistic view of things. They imagine the multiplicity of external objects to be real and become attached to them and are nourished by their habit energy. Because of the system of mentation, mind and what belongs to it is discriminated and is thought of as real. This leads to the assertion of an ego soul and its belongings, and thus the mind system goes on functioning. Depending upon and attaching itself to the dualistic habit of mind, they accept the views of the philosophers founded upon these erroneous distinctions of being and non-being, existence and non-existence, and there evolves what we call false imaginations.
okay. So he has explained what is false imagination. Okay. Buddha says, depending upon and attaching itself to the dualistic habit of mind. So the dualistic habit of mind, they accept the views of the philosophers founded upon the erroneous distinctions of being and non-being, existence and non-existence. This so the duality is the actually false imagination. Duality itself gives false imagination. Yeah. Further.
But Mahamati, discrimination does not evolve nor is it put away because when all that is seen is truly recognized to be nothing but the manifestation of mind, how can discrimination as regards being and non being evolve? It is for the sake of the ignorant who are addicted to the discrimination of the multiplicity of things which are of their own mind, that is said by me that discrimination takes its rise owing to attachment to the aspect of multiplicity which is characteristic of objects. How otherwise can the ignorant and simple minded recognize that there is nothing but what is seen of the mind itself, and how otherwise can they gain an insight into the true nature of mind and be able to free themselves from wrong conceptions of cause and effect? How otherwise can they gain a clear conception of the bodhisattva stages and attain a turning about in the deepest seat of their consciousness, and finally attain an inner self realization of noble wisdom which transcends the five dharmas, the three self natures, and the whole idea of a discriminated reality? For this reason is it said by me that discrimination takes its rise from the mind becoming attached to the multiplicity of things which in themselves are not real, and that emancipation comes from thoroughly understanding the meaning of reality as it truly is.
Yes. Yes. So the highlight of this paragraph is they can gain a clear conception of the bodhisattva stages and attain a turning about in the deepest seat of their consciousness. So you must note the turning about word. Turning about. Unless a turning about takes place in the deepest seat of their consciousness, they cannot enter into the self-realization of noble wisdom. So turning about is very important, and that this word will come again. Some sometimes, many times you will see this word, turning about, turning about. So turning about should take place at the deepest seat, and this word also you should note, deepest seat, not the upper seats or the superficial seats. So consciousness is very deep, very vast. So the turning about should take place not only the superficial consciousness or in the upper level layers, but in the deepest layers, the last layer of your consciousness should be filled with turning about, and then finally attain an inner self-realization of noble wisdom. And when you attain that, then that transcends the five dharmas, the three self-natures, and the whole idea of discriminating reality. Okay. And Buddha says, for this reason, it is said by me that discrimination takes its rise from the mind becoming attached to the multiplicities multiple slit, see multiplicities. You see numerous things. You see, stars. You see uh, different planets. You see even on this planet. You see there are different numerous things, multiplicity of things. Actually, in reality, they are not real. Okay, and that emancipation comes from thoroughly understanding the meaning of reality as it truly is. So emancipation cannot happen, cannot take place unless you understand thoroughly, not partially, thoroughly. You thoroughly understand the meaning of reality as truly it is, not falsely. Okay? And it says false imagination rise from the consideration of appearances.
False imaginations rise from the consideration of appearances. Things are discriminated as to form, signs, and shape, as to having color, warmth, humidity, motility, and rigidity. False imagination consists in becoming attached to these appearances and their names. By attachment to objects is meant then the getting attached to inner and outer things as if they were real. By attachment to names is meant the recognition in these inner and outer things of the characteristic marks of individuation and generality, and to regard them as definitely belonging to the names of the objects.
Hmm.
False imagination teaches that because all things are bound up with causes and conditions of habit energy that has been accumulating since beginningless time by not recognizing that the external world is of mind itself, all things are comprehensible under the aspects of individuality and generality. By reason of clinging to these false imaginations, there is multitudinousness of appearances which are imagined to be real but which are only imaginary. To illustrate, when a magician, depending on grass, wood, shrubs, creepers, exercises his art, many shapes and beings take form that are only magically created. Sometimes they even make figures that have bodies and that move and act like human beings. They are variously and fancifully discriminated, but there is no reality in them. Everyone but children and the simple minded know that they are not real.
Okay, so everything is like the made of a magician. So Brahma is also kind of magician. Brahma, the creator, is also kind of magician. And everything which we see is like magical. Okay. And the magical things are not real. Even the simple minded person understands that this is not real. This is just illusion. Okay. Likewise, read further.
Likewise, based upon the notion of relativity, false imagination perceives a variety of appearances, which the discriminating mind proceeds to objectify and name and become attached to, and memory and habit energy perpetuate. Here is all that is necessary to constitute the self nature of false imagination. The various features of false imagination can be distinguished as follows: as regards words, meaning, individual marks, property, self-nature, cause, philosophical views, reasoning, birth, no birth, dependence, bondage, and emancipation. Discrimination of words is the becoming attached to various sounds carrying familiar meanings. Discrimination of meanings comes when one imagines that words rise depending upon whatever subjects they express, and which subjects are regarded as self-existent. Discrimination of individual marks is to imagine that whatever is denoted in words concerning the multiplicities of individual marks, which in themselves are like a mirage, is true and clinging tenaciously to them, to discriminate all things according to such categories as warmth, fluidity, motility, and solidity. Discrimination of property is to desire a state of wealth such as gold, silver, and various precious stones. Discrimination of self nature is to make discriminations according to the views of the philosophers in reference to the self nature of all things which they imagine and stoutly maintain to be true, saying, "This is just what it is and it cannot be otherwise." Discrimination of cause is to distinguish the notion of causation in reference to being and non being, and to imagine that there are such things as cause signs. Discrimination of philosophical views means considering different views relating to the notions of being and non being, oneness and otherness, bothness and not bothness, existence and non existence, all of which are erroneous, and becoming attached to particular views. Discrimination of reasoning means the teaching The teaching whose reasoning is based on the grasping of the notion of an ego substance and what belongs to it. Discrimination of birth means getting attached to the notion that things come into existence and pass out of existence according to causation. Discrimination of no birth is to see that causeless substances which were not come into existence by reason of causation. Discrimination of dependence means the mutual dependence of gold and the filament made of it. Discrimination of bondage and imagination is like imagining that there is something bound because of something binding, as in the case of a man who ties a knot and loosens one. These are the various features of false imagination to which all the ignorant and simple minded cling. Those attached to the notion of relativity are attached to the notion of the multitudinousness of things which arises from false imagination. It is like seeing varieties of objects depending upon Maya, but these varieties thus revealing themselves are discriminated by the ignorant as something other than Maya itself. According to their way of thinking, now the truth is Maya and varieties of objects are neither different nor not different. If they were different, varieties of objects would not have Maya for their characteristic. If they are not different, there would be no distinction between them. But as there is a distinction, these two, Maya and varieties of objects, are neither different nor not different for the very good reason they are one thing.
Okay. So, since this uh, part is about discrimination, and Buddha says that based on discrimination or on the imagination, they say that this is just what it is and it cannot be otherwise. They say no, this is just what it is and it cannot be otherwise. They are so adamant. They proclaim, they assert, no, this is just in this way, not the otherwise. But they don't know that things are otherwise also. Everything has two aspects. And if one attaches, one affirms only one aspect, they say, no, this is in the same way only. That means that is an imagination and a wrong view of false imagination. Yes, Priya, now please read this last question and answer.
Mahamati asked to the Blessed One, is error an entity or not? The Blessed One replied, error has no character in it making for attachment. If error had such a character, no liberation would be possible from its attachment to existence. And the chain of
Origination.
origination would only be understood in the sense of creation as upheld by the philosophers. Error is like Maya also, and as Maya is incapable from producing other Maya, so error in itself cannot produce error. It is discrimination and attachment that produce evil thought and false.
Yes. So Mahamati asked to the Buddha that what is an error and is error an entity or not? Buddha says error is like Maya. Okay. Error is like Maya. And like Maya is incapable to produce other Maya, so error in itself cannot produce error. Okay. So Buddha says it is discrimination and attachment that produce evil thoughts and faults. And further he says, moreover, Priya.
Moreover, Maya has no power of discrimination in itself. It only rises when invoked by the charm of the magician. Error has in itself no habit energy. Habit energy only rises from discrimination and attachment. Error in itself has no faults. Faults are due to the confused discrimination fondly cherished by the ignorant concerning the ego soul and its mind. The wise have nothing to do either with Maya or error.
Yeah. So this is bottom line. Buddha says error has in itself no habit energy. And habit energy only arises from discrimination and attachment. Buddha says error in itself has no faults. Faults are due to the confused discriminations fondly cherished by the ignorant concerning the ego soul and its mind. And at the end, Buddha says, the error, the wise have nothing to do with error, either with Maya nor with error. So the wise man doesn't give importance to Maya or the error. Maya, however, yes,
Maya, however, is not an unreality because it only has the appearance of reality. All things have the nature of Maya. It is not because all things are imaged and clung to because of multi the
multitudinous,
multitudinous of individual sign that they are like Maya. It is because they are alike unreal as a quickly appearing and disappearing. Being attached to erroneous thought, they confused and
contradict.
contradict themselves and others, as they do not have clarity grasp the fact that the world is no more than mind itself. They imagined a cling to caution, work, birth, and individual sign, and their thought are characterized by error and false imagination. The teaching that all things are characterized by the self
Characterized.
characterized by the self nature of Maya, and a dream is meant to make the ignorant and simple minded cast aside the idea of self nature in anything.
Okay. So Buddha says Maya, however, is not an unreality. So Maya, in fact, is not unreality, but it has appearance of reality. Okay, Maya has appearance of reality. So in one sense, Maya is real because that is looking like real, but in fact, that is not real. So this is the nature of Maya. Okay. So all things have the nature of Maya. Buddha says everything has the same nature of like Maya. Everything like Maya exists in one sense as appearance, but in reality, that doesn't exist. Yeah,
False imagination teaches that such thing as light and shade, long and short, black and white are different and are to be discriminated, but they are not independent of each other. They are only different aspects of the same thing. They are termed of real relation,
relation.
not of reality. Conditions, conditions of existence are not of a mutually exclusive character. In essence, things are not two but one. Even nirvana and samsara's word of life and death as aspects of the same thing. For there is no nirvana expect where except
Except,
where is samsara, and no samsara except where is nirvana. All duality is falsely imagined.
yeah, I would like to highlight this. So Buddha says that conditions of existence are not of mutually exclusive character. Hence, things are not two but one. So we are not different. You, me, he, she are not different. Inherently, we all are one. Okay. So here Buddha clarifies that even nirvana and samsara, which samsara? This samsara of life and death are aspects of the same thing. So nirvana is one aspect and samsara is other aspect. But therefore Buddha says there is no nirvana except where is samsara, and no samsara except where is nirvana. Okay. So nirvana is samsara, samsara is nirvana. Or nirvana is other aspect of samsara, and samsara is other aspect of nirvana. So these two are not different, and all duality is falsely imagined. Got it? So nirvana, people seek that that would be out of this world, but nirvana is not outside this world. Nirvana is right here, right now, in this world of birth and death. in this world of, you know, all the phenomena. Nirvana is right now, right here, in motion. Nirvana is in, movement. Nirvana is in flaw. Nirvana is false. Nirvana is correctness. Nirvana is everywhere. Okay, Mahamati.
Mahamati, you and all the bodhisattvas should discipline yourself in the realization and patient acceptance of the truth of emptiness, unbornness, no self
Oh,
natureness,
self-natureness.
and the non duality of all things. This teaching is found in all the sutras of all the Buddhas and is presented to meet the varied disposition of all being, but it is not the truth itself. These teachings are only a finger pointing towards noble wisdom. They are like mirage with its spring of water which the deer takes to be real and chase after. So, with the teaching in all these sutras, they are intended of the consideration and guidance of the discrimination minds of all people, but they are not the truth itself, which can only be self realized with one's deepest consciousness. Mahamati, you and all the bodhisattvas must seek for the inner self realization of noble wisdom and be not captivated by word teaching.
Okay, so this last para is most important. If you understand this, you'll understand the conclusion of this topic. Okay, false imagination. So Buddha says that you and all bodhisattvas, because nirvana and samsara are not two but same. Other aspect of the one aspect of the same thing, right? Therefore, Buddha says you and all bodhisattvas should discipline yourself in the realization and patient acceptance of the truths of emptiness, unbornness, no self-natureness, and the non-duality of all things. See, the non-duality people understand is different than this concept. So the non-duality, the concept of non-duality, what I understand, we understand, or Buddha says, or our organization, the non-duality, Advait is the same, not the people understand. Non-duality means there is no two. There are two, yet there are one. So you cannot say there are two, and also you cannot say that they are one. Got it? So you cannot assert nor you can negate. You have to just be silent. If anyone say that these are two, that is wrong. If they say they are one, that is wrong. Because in one sense they are two, but in reality they are one. So in appearance they are two. In appearance they are Maya, but in reality they are empty. So the emptiness, unbornness, this is the intrinsic nature of everything. Buddha says that, and we have to accept this patiently, with patience. Accept this reality with patience that the truth of emptiness, unbornness, no self-nature, and the non-duality of all things means everything is non-dual, everything has no self-nature, everything is unborn, everything is empty. And Buddha says that this teaching is found in all the sutras of all the Buddhas. Do you see this? If you remember, as I had said earlier, that he says all the Buddhas, not that me, I am Buddha. Buddha doesn't say that I am only Buddha. He says all the Buddhas. All the Buddhas, in all the sutras of all the Buddhas, you will find the same truth, the same reality. Okay? And always remembering that these teachings are not only the reality. These teachings are only finger pointing toward the truth, noble wisdom. Okay? And you should not understand that this teaching is itself is reality. Okay? This teaching itself is not reality. This teaching is just the finger point, and we have to reach there, what it points to. Okay, therefore he says, so with the teachings in all sutras, they are intended for the consideration and guidance of the discriminating mind of all people, but they are not the truth itself, which can only be self-realized within one's deepest consciousness. Therefore, he says, he exhorts, Buddha exhorts, and he says, Mahamati, you and all the bodhisattvas must seek for this inner self-realization of noble wisdom and be not captivated by word teaching. So don't be illusioned, don't be fascinated, don't be captivated by the words and discriminations. So don't go on the teaching through words, but by realization. Realization is only important. Okay, so that was enough for today because this is a very profound subject and this is not a novel or not a story that we should read and we should finish this entire chapter. Okay,